Good afternoon, everybody. Hi. Yeah, you can say hello back. It's kind of big and lonely and spacious up here when you first start. I'm so glad to see all of you. Having little flashbacks to last year. It's just really great that you came out and to be here today. My name is Pamela, and I'm basically just here to make sure that everybody knows when they're supposed to be up here. And I just want to welcome you and thank you, and I know that it just means a lot for us all to be here again and to recognize this day as sort of a day of celebration, actually. We're acknowledging that 1 year ago what happened with some terrible things and tragedy, but it's also a celebration that we're here again, so I feel good about being here today. I want to start out by bringing the pastor of this church up, which is Connie Sidebottom, to speak to you. Connie, thank you. Yeah, you can welcome her.
I would like us to begin. We light these two candles representing often opposing sides for all peace in the world. And I think with what's going on in the world, it might be a good idea to have a couple moments of silence for prayers or silence, whatever your tradition suggests, for peace outside our doors as well as inside our doors. Let us be quiet for a moment. By way of welcome, I would like to tell you a story. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but that's actually my family. I have 29 first cousins, and these are not cousins that I do not know. Every 2 years we have family reunions, and I know all of them. Some a little better than others, unfortunately, that I don't always want to know. But it is very much in the flavor of that movie that my family lives. And of course, the inevitable of that amount of people, what you might guess is that my cousin John is indeed gay. And we always knew that. From when we were very young, he was very gifted, sang, had the most beautiful tenor voice in his church for years, and lived on a farm in Colorado. When he recognized in his, I remember when I was in seminary, shamefully I said to him, "When did you know you were gay?" and never said to my 28 other cousins, "When did you know you were heterosexual?" And yet, because he was a good cousin and a good friend, he told me. He said, "When I went to kindergarten, I knew I was different, but I didn't know what different meant until the hormones kicked in. And then I knew what it meant." So when I went into high school, when I graduated, I moved to Los Angeles because it felt safer somehow. And he wasn't in Los Angeles more than 3 years when he got HIV virus. And when he went into full-blown AIDS, he went home to die in his hometown, surrounded by the family that loved him and cared for him in all of this. And the reason I tell you this story is this part. When he died, the pastor that had been his Christian pastor his entire life refused to bury him. Said that he was going to hell. By that time, I had been a minister in Plains in Paradise, Montana for 3 years. In those 3 years, I'd had 2 young men come to me for pastoral counseling, wondering how they could deal with their sexuality in rural Montana. I'd had a woman in midlife talk about being a lesbian and how she'd become an alcoholic to deal with the pain that had involved. And while I have been so ashamed at times of my Christian sisters and brothers in the Christian clergy, I have also been in love with their stances. I am, of course, a part of the United Methodist Church, which has never made a public stand supporting the marriage of gay and lesbian or ordaining gay and lesbian. But we in the Western jurisdiction of that church do support that. So it isn't the entire Methodist Church, it is strongholds of it that hold the power that keep us from doing that. A week and a half ago, my 48-year-old sister, Delene, came to live with us. She didn't have a lot of other opportunities in her life at the time. And we did what families are supposed to do. We opened the door, brought her in, and closed ranks. You in this room today may not know that experience, but we here at the First United Methodist Church do. And today we open our doors, we encircle you with support, and we close ranks around you with love. You are welcome in our living room, God's living room. We are glad you are here, and we want you to know the word Christian depends on the person that you're talking to, just like everything else. May you feel the comfort of home as you're here. Amen.
Thank you. Nice to hear. We got a little music coming for you from our very own. Yes, folks, she's putting on her guitar. She's strapping her guitar on. Amy Martin.
Thanks. I'm tempted to do this without a mic at all, but the people in the back might not be able to hear. Can you hear the guitar through the mic at all? Or yeah, Ami's giving me a nod. Okay. Whatever Ami says goes, I think. Well, it's really an honor to be here. I was here last year, as I'm sure all of you were, and or most at least. And when I got home from the events that we had that day, the gathering here and then the gathering on the bridge where we lit candles, I think it took maybe that night or the next night for everything to kind of soak in, and then I woke up in the middle of the night and I had a song there that needed to come out, and it was, sometimes songs take a while to sort of release themselves, but this one it really came out all in a piece, like a little baby being born. And I think that's because the urgency of it kind of compressed that whole gestation period, and I really do feel like songs are, they come from somewhere else, they go from somewhere else, and when we're singing them, we're just kind of the conduit. And so I thank you all for giving me this song and for receiving it back. This is called Phoenix Letter to an Arsonist. I wish you could have been there last Saturday. I wish you could have seen what you had done. 1,000 people singing, we shall overcome, and we shall overcome. I wish you could have been on the bridge that day, as we held our candles into all the night. this fire. I wish you could have held the baby, shaken and afraid. I wonder if you had looked into his eyes, could you have lit those deadly flames? Or did you think you could just erase their names? And is there really love enough to squander? Can we afford to throw any love away? And you think only you can determine what is and is not God's way. Well, like a phoenix, laid on the fire, we will rise up stronger from the heat of this fire. Well, I wish I could sit down and share a meal with you. I want to look you in the face. I want to ask what you're so afraid of. I want to ask why love makes you hate. And I'm afraid to say these words out loud, 'cause you have proven the power of your rage. But I believe your heart can be opened, and I will sing and hope and pray that like a phoenix, laid on the fire, we will rise up stronger from the heat of this fire. We will rise, we will rise, we will rise up, we will rise up stronger. We will rise up stronger from the heat of this fire.
Thank you, Amy. Nice way to start it all. Again. This thing is... I don't do both of these things, sorry. I want to just mention before I go on any further is that we, as we pull these gatherings together, which we have a lot to thank, where is she? Where is she? Mona. Mona Bachman for pulling so much of this together. Thank you, Mona. Yeah. Just people have come up to me knowing I was emceeing and saying, we want to make sure that, that our church has been really behind this and was here last year, and again, and our support is strong for what's going on. And I can't list them all because I didn't have time ahead of time, but I think we all acknowledge and appreciate and love the people who have stood by all of this, and we do appreciate that you want us to know that. And I know a lot of people were here last year, a lot of the churches spoke last year. This year we have different churches speaking who didn't get a chance to speak maybe last year, but we all know you're here with us in spirit, and so we thank you for letting us know that and acknowledge that from you. So having said that, I would like to invite up Robin Abshaus, and I'm going to let her sort of introduce why she came here today. Welcome, Robin.
Hi, I'm here today to speak as a practicing Jewish person who believes in the sanctity of all families and all marriages, regardless of their structure. I do not speak for a particular Jewish organization, but I would like to share with you a responsa from the Central Conference of Reform American Rabbis. They write, "We agree that all human beings, regardless of sexual orientation, are created in the image of God, and that it is the religious duty of Reform rabbis to treat all of them with respect and with love. This statement, we further agree, is more than a platitude. It is an aspiration which calls us to action. It demands of us that we receive all those who come before us with compassion and empathy. It demands that we hear them before we preach to them, that we listen to their stories of pain and exclusion, and that we respond to them as rabbis, as teachers of an ancient and honorable religious tradition. I am here today to speak out for justice, for respect, for freedom, and for democracy. We cannot truly call ourselves a free or a democratic society so long as there exists a group of people who are not allowed to participate fully in the life of that society. There will never truly be freedom or democracy until there is respect for each one of us, until no group of people is feared and discriminated against, until we end homophobia and all of our other people phobias. In the words of the rabbis, I call upon all of us to receive those who come before us with compassion and empathy. I call upon us to listen without hate and to respond to all people with respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. It's my honor at this time to bring up Father Jim Hogan from Christ the King Church. Welcome him.
Thank you. Three expressions of gratitude and one regret to start with. Thank you for Karen, I guess you're Karen, for calling me. I know it was the last minute thing. I appreciate the privilege to be here with you, and thank you for that. Thank Connie for setting the theme of peace, because in a real sense, that's what this gathering is about, is peace. If there's not peace in our own hearts and in our own communities, then there cannot be peace in the world. And I've never had a chance to do this, but I want to thank Amy Martin for being part of our Missoula community, because you are an extraordinary gift to all of us. As Robin spoke, she talked about the need to respect the dignity of every human person. If there's any way to summarize the teaching, the life of Jesus of Nazareth, then certainly it is to say, here was a human being who lived with the ultimate respect for others and invited all who would be companions of his to do the same. The difficulty is, over the course of centuries, we who are part of Christian households of faith have had that vision distorted. I am appalled at the number of Christian people, be it in my own Catholic household or in others, that readily approve of war and see that as in no way contradictory to the nonviolent Jesus. For me, the call of our life is to become human. And at the heart of being human is to love one another. At the heart of the breaking of love is judgment and alienation and separation. And once we are able to judge someone else on whatever basis, then it seems to become permissible to do violence to them. This Jesus of Nazareth came to set another standard. And it is not only in his spoken word, but in his lived experience that we see a very non-violent human person. And so as I would be here among you today, I would simply ask you in your own heart to consider the implications of that for your own life. In a homily of Christ the King a week or so ago, I used a little story, which I would repeat here. There was a neighborhood that became aware that someone in their neighborhood had a gun, and this made the neighbors nervous. So they got together to go visit Margaret. She was the owner of the gun. And they said, "Margaret, we want you to throw that away. It makes us very uncomfortable." So she said yes, she would do that. But after a short while, typical of most neighbors, they became a little suspicious that she had not done that. So again, they came to her and said, "Margaret, we really are nervous. We suspect you did not throw that gun away, and we're very uncomfortable. Did you do it?" She said, "No, I didn't throw it away." Well, again, they insisted, "You simply have to do this because it makes us very much afraid." And she looked at them and said, "No, it's my house and my gun, and I'm not going to throw it away." So you know what they did? All the neighbors went home and got their guns and came back and pointed them all at Margaret and said, "If you don't get rid of your gun, we're going to shoot you." There's a lot of lessons in that story, one of which is what we as a country are inclined to do this day to other neighbors in the world. But that's basic stories about ourselves. Couple of applications. We have no right to point our fingers at anyone else. The moment we do, we are in the process of judgment, and when we begin to judge, we are in the process of violence. So I stand here before you today mindful of the many times that I tend to do that. It's very difficult to be human and not be judgmental. I also recognize that every time that I choose not to do that, I get closer to being nonviolent like Jesus of Nazareth. So I would simply invite you today in this gathering, which is a very precious moment in time for everybody in this room, to look in your own life and make a renewed commitment to be non-judgmental. Really to make a commitment to be non-judgmental, even of those who would cause pain to you in your life. And to embrace a true ethic of nonviolence. That's not to be passive in the face of evil. It's to resist evil and to stand against it, but without raising one's hands and one's arms to do violence in return. Thank you for allowing me to be here with you, and I hope and pray God's blessing upon all in this room.
Thank you. Now I am having a flashback, except she was sitting on this side last year, and she was slipping me notes by the minute last time out. It was all so quick and so sudden, so it's a little calmer this time, isn't it? Yeah. It's my pleasure to introduce, and I asked her how to pronounce her name, make sure I got it right, Betty Kievsky, and she's from the Montana Human Rights Network. Is that right?
Yeah, that was really
Let's welcome Betty. Thank you.
Well, as you said, my name is Betty Kievsky, and I'm an organizer for the Montana Human Rights Network. And last year I had the honor and privilege to work with many people on the response rally. But this year they asked me to come back specifically to share with you a project that I've been working on. My son and I left in December on a fast-paced trip across Montana and interviewed a wide variety of gay and lesbian youth about their lives and about their experiences in Montana schools. I would say to you that they came from public schools, private schools. I'm going to turn blue here. They're turning on the machine because we're going to watch a little bit of the video. They came from alternative schools, job corps. Some of them graduated in classes where there were 6 people. Not some, one young man. And some came from graduating classes that had 400 students. I think it's easier to allow them to speak to their own experience than me to share with you what they said. But I wanted to say that it was really difficult to take a portion of this film. Okay, that's way too long, right? To decide what portion to show you, and certainly there's a portion of the film where they speak as well as they can when a camera's in front of their face about the harassment that they have faced and the violence that they have endured. I chose not to pick that piece today. I chose to pick the piece at the end where they spoke about what they wanted teachers to know and how they would like schools to respond to the harassment that they endure. I also wanted to share with you before we look at this film that the majority of the youth who have shared their stories with me do not appear in this video. The reasons are quite broad, from scheduling problems to parents that were afraid to have their faces on a screen and just could not bring themselves to sign consent forms. And some was the students' own personal fears. But I want to say that their experiences and their pain and their successes reside in my heart. And I am compelled to do this work on their behalf. It was an incredibly emotional experience. I'm sorry. For my son and I to listen to what they had faced. And so I'm just going to show the film. We're going to watch about 7 minutes of it. And I would ask you, I will be traveling around the state showing this video, so when you see it come to your community, please come and watch it in its entirety. They have amazing things to say, and I am very honored that they trusted me with their lives and their experiences to bring it to a wider community. Let's move the screen.
If people want to get you to show that somewhere, can they contact you after this event? If there's some place they want to show it?
Or they can call me at the Human Rights Center.
At the Human Rights Center. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Very powerful, thank you. That's great. I'd like to invite up this time, it's my pleasure to invite Carl Olson up here. Carl is Pride.
Great, I get to follow the kids. My name is Carl Olson. I'm the director of Pride. I am a person of interest still, as far as I know. I didn't become a person of interest until August of this year. I don't know what I did before then. I've been asked to share with you some of the effects of the reason why we're here and how we see this, the ramifications of all of this in Helena and in our State House. There's some good things about what's happening in the legislature I want to share with you, and some not so good things. Some of the highlights for me, one was to see Representative Ron Erickson stand on the floor of the House and reference Carla and Adrian's story for the full 100 representatives, and that was particularly a highlight for myself. Carol Snetzinger, who was one of the co-plaintiffs along with her partner Nancy Siegel, testified in support of bias crimes legislation, and she shared Carol and Nancy's experience for the committee there, and I want to thank Carol tonight for being there. Two Missoula representatives are sponsoring pro-gay and lesbian legislation. One is sponsoring a total of 3 bills on his own that would extend equality to gay and lesbian folks. And there are a record number of, a total of 6 pro-equality bills this session in the legislature. We've also seen anti-gay crusaders, of course, make the legislature their home. They've stormed the Capitol this session, and we are wearing them down with our same-sex love. Here's some of what they had to share with us, and I want to share it with you. I think it's important not to dwell on negative things, but to understand the reality of what we're dealing with. Greg Trude, the director of Montana Right to Life, spoke at a rally in Helena on Martin Luther King Day, and he said, if you get out of your cities and talk to normal people, most of them are pro-life, pro-gun, and anti-homosexual. They just are. Gilda Clancy, the lobbyist for Phyllis Schlafly's Eagle Forum, Phyllis is in Helena, by the way, this weekend, said in a hearing, in 2001, only 10 murders across the country were hate crimes. Only one of those was an anti-gay hate crime. The need for a hate crimes law is simply not needed. It is a special boutique law. Jenny Dodge of the Citizens Network says, how do you determine if a victim is homosexual? How does one define homosexuality? You might have 3 bisexuals living together, a transgender and a crossdresser, or a master and a slave. T. Nash from Missoula's Coalition for Community Responsibility, in his opposition to bias crimes legislation, said, I've been intimidated because I've been a musician, and because I impersonate Elvis, I've been intimidated by women. I've been approached by gay men. I find that repulsive. I've been offered money to commit the crime of sodomy. This session, the Montana Catholic Conference switched directions, and on behalf of Montana's bishops, sent a memo to legislators asking them to oppose measures of gay and lesbian equality because such legislation, quote, does not resonate with Catholic teachings. Harris Himes, pastor of Big Sky Christian Center, not too far from here in Hamilton, has said, when Montana was formed, it dedicated its territory to God. It is God who we honor. God has said homosexuality is a sin and is treated as a crime. Our entire country is sliding into darkness. God is mocked, and he is watching what you do. T. Nash, again from Missoula, said House Bill 294, which is one of the bills which would basically take the archaic deviant sex law off the books of the legislature. He says that bill creates a hidden door for homosexuality that is predatory on young children. Adult youth sex is viewed as an important part of gay culture. Gay men think they are doing children a favor by sodomizing them. I am ashamed and appalled that Representative Facey has brought this legislation as he serves as an educator of youth. When I share these kinds of things with people about the legislature, what I often hear from, I think, very good people and well-intentioned people is how can they say these things? How can this be a feature of our government? It's so illogical. It's irrational. And how can they get away with such inane stuff? And my response, which may be a little cynical, is that in the legislature, logic has its limits. Science, reason, facts, compassion, spirit, they have their limits in our legislature. And where we really need to apply these things, logic, reason, compassion, is in the voting booth. Because once all this comes to the legislature, it's too late, really. So, unlike Mr. Nash, I am not ashamed and appalled of Representative Facey. I'm going to actually ask a couple of representatives, I'll introduce one at a time, but we have a couple here today to share with you the legislation they're sponsoring to support gay and lesbian folks. Representative Tom Facey is from House District 67, which is the Slant Street area, and he is sponsoring, will be introducing very soon a bill that would allow gay and lesbian folks to marry like their heterosexual counterparts.
thank you. I think I can get through this too. Where's Rosie? Okay, good. I got some support. As Carl said, logic leaves at I think the address of the Capitol is 1206 Avenue in Helm. It just sort of goes out the building. But sincerely, I would like to thank you for being here. And I'd like to thank you, those who were here last year, because I think when we gather, it gives each other support. And it gives me support. And I know I learn more about the issues, and I know about the personal things, but the inner workings and the politics when I'm with you, it gives me strength and knowledge. Betty, I didn't get a chance to talk to Betty. I called you Betty, but you weren't at home. You were here, so. But let's message of the machine either at home or with the human rights networks. To show you how logic leaves the building pretty fast, we passed out of second reading today a bill making racial profiling illegal. It passed, I think, 100-0. The bill is almost exactly, Betty, what you and I worked on and introduced Wednesday. Almost exactly. It tells police forces they have to get policies. It lists amounts of things that the policy has to have, and disciplinary thing. It's almost exactly the bill we had. Betty worked on the bill about bullying and harassment in schools with me, but it doesn't have those two words, sexual orientation. And I took the bill to a member of the Education Committee and said, Representative, this is exactly what I'm asking you to do. The same thing. It doesn't have those two words in it. He took it and said, that's interesting. He told me the day before he was a supporter of Bill Betty. In the legislature, you only need one reason to vote against a bill. You only need one reason to vote against it. So people might ask, how come we're going to be introducing these bills? I think we're going to introduce them to move the cause forward. And by chance, if someone is listening and thinking, there might be a technical reason to vote against the bill about the removing the requirement that married people be husband and wife. I've got a bill this session. It's the third time I've introduced the same bill. It's a great bill. It will get through one time. But every time it's had some technical reasons not to pass. So you introduce bills for the right social thing to do and to find out those technical reasons that they don't pass. Again, thank you for being here. Well, I did just the right thing, but thanks for being here.
Now we know that marriage isn't universally, the thing that everyone wants to go for. When I lived in Nebraska, we had a senator there, Ernie Chambers, the only black senator, who was very colorful and expressive and keeps bringing a marriage bill to the Nebraska legislature. And he said, I've been married, I've been divorced, it was hell. I don't know why anyone would want this headache, but if I can have it, so should everyone else. But if marriage isn't your thing, there's about 1,000 different rights, protections, and benefits that come under that umbrella. We have another bill that's going to be introduced that would allow people to designate their same-sex partners as their dependents so that they could access their health insurance program. And Representative Rosie Buzzes of House District 65, which is the University District, is going to be introducing that bill. And Rosie, come up and share that with us.
Thanks. And Carl asked me to come here today and just say a few words about this bill. And he gave me a couple of instructions about that. And he said, one, could you talk about why it is you're carrying this bill this session? And secondly, could you keep it short? And so, as we were coming back from Helena Day, it is really nice to be back in school, by the way. I wrote some notes. I wasn't driving, my husband was driving. But I started thinking, well, why am I here now this year carrying this piece of legislation? And I remembered last year when this horrible arson happened, and I heard the news, and feeling so horrified that this kind of thing could happen in my community. And I kept thinking, what can I do? You know, what can I do to change this? And so I attended the event here, and I attended the candlelight vigil, and I went to some community meetings such as Father Hogan held at his church, where people needed to talk about this. And then it went to court. Well, the university said they couldn't do it, the legislature needed to do something. And then when the courts finally settled on it and said, well, this is a legislative issue, this needs to be decided by the Montana legislature, I finally realized I can do something. I am a member of the legislature, I have a voice in that arena, and I have a vote in that arena. And so when Carl approached me about this fall, I said, this is one I can do. And so I'm pleased to be carrying this piece of legislation. What it will do is give homosexual couples the rights and privileges enjoyed by heterosexual couples in Montana. We have a wonderful Constitution. The preamble of that Constitution says that all Montanans will have equal opportunity and that they will have the right to a healthful and clean environment. Access to health insurance is part of a healthful environment. So we must bring this issue forward and keep bringing it forward until it passes. And it may not pass this year, but someday it will pass. The price of speaking out is high, as many of you, especially Carla and Adrian, know. But the price of silence is even higher. And you know, you heard about the bullying bill that Representative Facey carried this last week. And that was a bullying bill that said there will not be bullying in schools in Montana, period. And it was a good bill. And I remember coming out of my hearing, just as that hearing was getting out and it was across the hall, and I saw Carl sitting on the bench, and he looked awful. And I said, Carl, you look awful. What happened? And he told me what had happened in there. He said that was turned into a gay and lesbian bashing. And that's what tends to happen up there. They turn everything into that. And so I guess what I want my message today is that, you know, we can't let our gay and lesbian friends do this alone, because it is very horrible to sit and listen to the kinds of absurdities, and they're absurdities that are aimed at gays and lesbians in that legislative process and in those hearings, especially when it's directed at you personally. You know, that's a horrible thing to have to sit and listen to, and I don't want my friends to feel horrible coming out of that. You know, that should be an open process where everyone is respected and heard. And so my appeal to you today is that our friends, our relatives, our co-workers need, who are gay and lesbian, should not have to do this alone. And I would appeal to heterosexual individuals as well as homosexual individuals to get together on this issue and make our voices heard and keep our voices strong. Because when that happens, when we have one voice, we will have social justice. And so I hope that we can move forward in a positive way with this bill, and if we don't get it done this year, we'll just keep going back until we get it done. Thank you.
Just a couple of quick things, and then I'll let other people take over here. If you want to track this legislation we talked about today, and if you want to participate in it, if you sign your name on the clipboards that went around, The organizations that will take those names will be sending out email alerts to you about this legislation. I'm pretty confident that those organizations will be doing that. So that's one way that you can get involved in this. I want to leave you with a quote. It's not from our Missoula legislators, with all due respect to them, but some of our most fun and colorful stuff comes out of Butte. And a Butte representative who also sponsored pro-lesbian and gay legislation this session, Representative Brad Newman, has said more than once in hearings and on the House floor, democracy is not two wolves and one sheep deciding on what to have for lunch. Thanks.
Thank you, Carl. You inspire me. You really do. I would like to invite up at this time Paula Lamb, who I understand is speaking about the schools in Hamilton, what's going on down there. Welcome.
Never done this before, so I'm pretty nervous. This is my son, and if y'all read The Independent, his name is Sam. His real name is Brian, and he's not one of the neatest people that I know. I'm sorry. He started school in Hamilton this fall as a freshman and didn't get the warmest welcomes. He started getting a lot of racial slurs and some really bad things happened to him. So I called the school, and then I went to the school, and then I called, and I showed up to school. And my husband got in touch with some of the most wonderful people here. The P5 for Karen, talked with some people through the university, and we've been struggling, fighting. I had to remove Brian from school for several weeks to try and get things calmed down. And just this last week, the slurs have started again. They had quit for a couple of weeks there, but they've started again. And not only do the teachers not particularly care for my son, the administration say they're supportive of him, but they're not showing as much support as what I would like. And now even the bus driver is picking on my son. We went to the officer on duty this last week and explained to him about some of the things that were going on. I had gotten to the point where I was going to go ahead and press charges. Well, no one wants to back him. They're all calling him a liar. So in turn, now they're threatening my son with federal charges because he's gay, because he's at their school. They don't want him there. They've ran 4 or 5 families out of Hamilton already, and I'm not gonna go. then our next meeting is the 13th at 4 p.m. I'm going to have it put in the Independent. I'm going to have it advertised in the newspapers, and I'd like to have it over the radio stations. I won't give my phone number because I've already had my house set on fire once. But that's neither here nor there. I love my family. I love my kids, my husband, my extended family. I mean, we're all going to hang in there. Now, this young man here is my son, and he's a special child. And he's in special ed, and he hears a lot of flack. And he hated his brother for years. Can you do it? He wrote something, and I wanted to have him read it. He doesn't know about this, so I'm kind of surprised.
I have a brother that is gay, or that likes other guys. Sorry. At first, I really hated it. I don't want to beat him up all the time to see if I could change him. I found out that all of them do was really hurt him. It hurt me. And really, it ain't good for anybody. But if they're that way, let them be that way. Treat them with the utmost respect, and help them get through everything. Because fighting with them and everything is just all I did was split us apart. And they just had sibling rivalry and stuff. And I'm not really good at this. I don't care, okay? But still, I'm gonna get to it. But he's my brother, and I love him very much, out there. I'll just take little parts out of it. But, and it's just he has the right to live as everybody else does. If you set rules for them, they'll more likely follow them, if they're respected and if they're heard, and if they're being treated as a person, not as a plague or something like that. God, I can't resist to him, but I would love to say I'm sorry for everything I've done. I haven't really been able to, because a lot of times whenever I think about it, I think it's way too late. Because, I do my best to, I want to be a man to stand up and show him that I'm there for him. And I never really could do that. But I do stand up for him in front of other people and everything else. And just want to say I'm sorry. I love him.
Believe it or not, if you touch a black man and you look at your hand, it hasn't changed color. If you touch a gay person, it's not going to change you. They are who they are, they are what they are. And I think Brian picked my outfit for crying out loud. He's got really good taste. I guess that's about it.
courage. Thank you all for your courage. It's, for every time someone like you comes up here and shares and takes that risk, we're all so much richer, and it lets someone else have a chance to do that when they do it. So thank you so much. Ooh. Karen. I'd like to welcome Karen Lewis up here, who obviously you just heard introduced a little bit. She's in PFLAG and also from the Human Rights Network. Thank you.
My name is Karen Loos. And I'm co-chair with Joe Loos of the P5 Missoula Pine Valley and the current chair of Missoula Advocates for Human Rights. And that's your local arm of the Montana Human Rights Network. And I've been asked to speak on behalf of the board of directors of the Montana Human Rights Network, who wish to present their annual Walt Brown Human Rights Award at this time. Walt Brown was an African-American activist from Great Falls who served as the president of the Montana Human Rights Network Board for a number of years. And after his death in 1996, the award was created to honor Walt and others in our state who have demonstrated their courage and commitment in defending and advancing human rights through social and environmental justice. This year's award is being presented to Carla Grayson and Adrienne Neff, and to Carol Snetzinger and Nancy Siegler. Both couples certainly demonstrated their high level of commitment when they filed the lawsuit to obtain equality for lesbian and gay university employees and their partners. That was courageous enough without having to face a year ago today. Carla and Adrienne, Carol and Nancy do not wish to remember, let alone receive an award because of that night. Because of a night they cannot forget, and all of us wish had never happened. They have said time and again that though they expected to face trouble, they did not expect to need the kind of courage it took to get through that night of political terrorism and what came after it. But they certainly did need it. And they certainly have earned our honor and respect when faced with more fear than anyone in our community should rightly be expected to live with. They have displayed the best of grace, of dignity, and of perseverance for their cause, the very definition of courage. In giving this award, I would like to also remember and honor the tremendous support many in our community immediately gave when a political terrorist struck in our midst. Communities need this kind of remembering, especially when we hear today of others who need our support. And that is what Carla and Adrienne, Carol and Nancy remind us of most of all, that there is still a need for us all to join in their fight for justice. And at this time, I would like to invite Carol and Nancy to speak, and then to invite Mona Bachman to speak on behalf of Carla and Adrienne.
Gosh, I almost don't know what to say, but we had a little bit of warning this time around. So I really would like to thank the Montana Human Rights Network for acknowledging us with this award. It feels great to be acknowledged for this because it really has been quite a wild ride. I also want to clarify that we're just the front people on this one, that this really is our lawsuit. We definitely could not have made it through this last year without your support. This has turned out to be a much larger community action than any of us anticipated, beginning long before the lawsuit was ever filed. And it has taken the support and efforts of our whole community to see this through in as amazing a style as we have. So thanks for the award, and I know that we're just on the front end of this one. The gift for me this last year that I'd like to share with you is the internal strength that I've been able to develop in the face of an incredibly oppressive culture towards gays and lesbians. I, like so many of us, still carry more internalized homophobia than I'd like. Internalized homophobia is the mistaken perspective that we take on that allows us to think that we deserve less just because we're gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. Internalized homophobia has made it difficult for me to ask for what I need and to ask to be treated equally. And it makes it easier for all of us to accept the status quo, especially when it doesn't seem so bad. Internalized homophobia, bottom line, is one of the key pieces that prevents us from moving forward as a group of people, from saying absolutely not, from saying this treatment is not acceptable and I won't stand for it. Out of the ashes of Carla and Adrian's home and the events of this last year, I've created a set of expectations for myself, one that is less influenced by internalized oppression than my perspective of 1 year ago. And for those of you that know me, you will probably well know that I have come a long way. At this point, I absolutely expect to carry myself in the world exactly as I am, and to be respected for that, regardless of who my partner is. I expect that I will be treated fairly in my job, again, regardless of the sex of my partner or spouse. I expect protection from violence towards me because I'm a lesbian. All violence is unacceptable, and violence committed with the intent of creating fear or intimidation in a group of people is more than unacceptable. All of us know this. I expect to be welcomed in a spiritual community of my choice without judgment about my choice of life partner. I expect full support and acknowledgement around choosing to marry and to create a family. And I expect that institutions that are intentionally or unintentionally stuck in a place of thinking that gays and lesbians deserve less make the move to a more just perspective. Those are my expectations, and I want to know what your expectations are. But more importantly, I want you to know what your expectations are. If you expect anything less than full and equal treatment, please know that that is not enough. To expect anything less than full and equal treatment is doing a disservice to ourselves and to the next generation of gays and lesbians. We all have every right to live a full and open life in our communities. And again, thank you. I am incredibly honored.
On Monday, when I heard the news from Scott that we were going to receive this award, I just burst into tears. And part of that reason is I was anticipating this anniversary of filing the lawsuit and of the arson, just filled with dread and fear and utter exhaustion. And so I can't tell you how much I appreciate this award, because it really shifted my entire perspective to something of more of relief and celebration. And I'm able to stand here today and just breathe a sigh of relief and say, oh, we made it. We made it through this year, which has been an absolute roller coaster of hope and despair, but we made it. And I have tremendous, tremendous gratitude for all of our friends and our families in this incredible community for bolstering us through this entire year. So I thank you for that. When I ask myself what has really changed in this community since we gathered in this church a year ago, I am filled with incredible hope. I was giving a talk in Bozeman at the last year's Pride and trying to make a poster of all the things that were happening.
And I had to use smaller and smaller and smaller font to try to squeeze it all on one piece of paper. The number of actions, activities, groups, and individuals that have focused on gay and lesbian issues this past year and have contributed to making Missoula a better and more welcoming place for all of us, gay and straight, has been absolutely amazing. What's happened in Missoula has rippled across this entire state, and communities 800 miles from here have been affected and changed because of what happened here. Gay youth who were terrified last year after the arson now have resources, a place to go, and a group to meet with to get support. All of these things fill me with an incredible amount of hope. There are a few things, though, that haven't changed, and that may take longer than a year, and that still desperately need some attention. Homophobia still works in insidious ways in our communities, in our institutions, and inside of ourselves. Hate crimes and harassment against gays and lesbians, as you've heard just today, happen regularly. They happen at the movie theaters here in town, they happen in the hallways at schools, and they happen downtown. And in spite of everything that's happened, all the new organizing, all the new groups that have formed, all the networking that's happened, people still wonder, but what can I do? What we could do is that all of us could walk around perpetually, absolutely outraged that an entire class of people is judged as less than and doesn't have the same basic rights as everybody else because of who they love. I've tried that, and I figured out why it doesn't work. It's really exhausting. Nobody can sustain the amount of outrage that this issue deserves. So I've got a different idea. It's my new 3-step plan. And I invite you to try it on. Step 1, face homophobia head on. That means if you're homosexual, remind yourself daily that you deserve to be treated with full dignity and have equal rights. I believe that the more people that know about what really happens in the town, the more incentive there will be to create change. Step 3, this might be the hardest step. Decide you're going to do something. You can figure out what that is later, but just for now, just to make that commitment. And this is a little bit difficult at times, so I'm going to help you with it. I'm going to tell you on the count of 3, I want you to hold your hands up like this, really wide. When I say 3, not yet. And you're going to say and explain with great delight, I can't wait to do more to stop hate in this community. 1, 2, 3. I can't wait to do more to stop hate in this community. That gives me a lot of hope.
Here she comes. My friend Mona, I didn't know she would come right after this. Mona, getting your award for Carla and Adrian, I believe.
All right. Carla and Adrian sent a message this morning. Hello, everyone. We are very honored to be selected for the Brown Award. We feel especially pleased to be receiving it alongside Carol and Nancy, who are some of the finest and bravest people we know. We are sorry not to be able to receive this award in person. Often, people ask us about our feelings about joining the lawsuit, about the arson and the aftermath, and ask us if we'd do it over again. We say, of course, are you nuts? Because of course, we wouldn't have knowingly exposed ourselves, and especially our young son, to such danger. But we know what the questioners are really asking, that they really want to know what we think about standing up, speaking out, being activists, being visible. Do we still think those activities are a good idea? Are they worth it? And the answer to that is a positive, resounding, absolute yes. We continue to firmly believe that resistance to oppression and fighting for the civil rights of all oppressed people is our duty. We believe that change is possible and that it is only through action, visibility, and resistance that real change happens. Right now, we are quiet. We're not yet over being scared. We're not ready to be visible again. But we will speak out and stand up again. We're still plaintiffs in the lawsuit, and we will not drop out. We take small steps towards regaining our courage and visibility. Last week, we finally put the rainbow sticker back on our car. Meanwhile, we watch in admiration and awe as Carol and Nancy, and as all of you, continue to stand bravely for us and for all oppressed people. There are a few other questions that people ask us often, and I want to give a few quick answers. First and foremost, Noah is fine. He's thriving, growing, well, happy, and confident. Carla and I are also okay, although it has been a very tough year. We've been sick more than we've been well, a real testament to the effects of stress on the immune system. We've been feeling the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder strongly, and we only now feel that we're on the verge of moving from day-to-day survival mode into the recovery process. We still want to come back to Missoula. We miss you, we miss Missoula, the people, the mountains, and the rivers. Noah is distinctly unimpressed with what they call mountains out here, and I never quite realized how boring Michigan rivers are. But we don't feel ready to be back yet, so Carla has extended her leave of absence from the university. It's hard to be away, but at this point, we feel it would be harder to be back. Nonetheless, we wish we could be with you all today to thank you in person for all the love and support you've given us throughout this year. Again, we want to thank Montana Human Rights Network for all the important work they do, the board for selecting us for this award. It is truly an honor. Sincerely, Adrienne and Carla, and it's an honor for me to accept this award in your name today. Thanks. Okay, and I'm back now. I'm going to say some things on behalf of myself and the coalition. I've been asked by a lot of journalists all this week to say something positive about the changes in Missoula following this arson attack 1 year ago. And I've had a really hard time doing that, not because I discount all the positive things to which Carol referred. There's been a lot of organizing, a lot of support, a lot of positive things have happened. The lawsuit is going through the court system. We still hope to receive justice from the Montana State Supreme Court. The Constitution of this state does have strong equal protection provisions, and we're hoping that the Supreme Court will interpret those as extending to gay and lesbian citizens as well as others. In November, we asked the regents, many of you were there, in a strong show of support, asking the regents to change their decision. They chose to uphold their decision and continue the discrimination against gay and lesbian university employees. There are the measures before the legislature that Carl spoke about, and representatives are doing a great job putting those forward. Social change is very slow, and positive social change is not at all inevitable. There are not a lot of instances from history that show liberal freedoms, rights of women, rights of gay people being eroded. It's not a straight shot that we are going to go forward and make progress in all these areas. It's up to us, it's up to you. One of the reasons that I have a hard time being totally positive or unambiguously positive about all this is the actions of the Missoula police following the arson. The arson attack, and it was a homicide attack. Carla, Adrienne, and their son were asleep in bed, and someone blocked all the doors and tried to kill them. That attack was horrendous, and it was also understandable to many of us who know that violence against gay people happens all the time. It takes one individual, or it takes a hate group, which certainly we know that exists. However, many of us did expect the support and protection of the police. And in this case, that was not forthcoming. Carla and Adrienne have been more hurt by the actions of the police than by the actions of that arsonist who did his work on that one evening. The police did their work all through the rest of the year. I'm not saying that each member is homophobic, but it's clear that institutional homophobia is a problem in the Missoula Police Department. The police union recommended that the city not extend partner benefits to gay employees of the city. It's an institutional problem. And it was a large blow to many of us in the community to find that out so starkly over and over as the weeks went by and Carla and Adrian were persecuted and harassed rather than helped. The good news is that we've recognized this as a huge problem, and there is in place now, and actually proceeding just now, an initiative for the education and training of police officers just having to do with sexual orientation issues. And this was implemented at the instigation of the coalition, and the National Coalition Building Institute is following through and doing a great job with this training. So it's not over. As I said, social change is not a given. We don't quite know where things are going to go from here. But we do know, as Carol said, and with that wonderful demonstration, that it's up to us. We can all do something about this. One thing we can do is the relief fund that was set up to help Carla and Adrian with the expenses related to the arson is still actually in effect, even though the investigation is over. Carla and Adrian had huge expenses related to their own security, and then further related to their defense of themselves from the police. They had huge lawyers' bills that are still coming in. And so their baskets being passed around. I know this may be just the same people who've already been asked over and over and have already captured all of that, but the need is still there. So if you have a checkbook, the relief fund is the name of the fund. It's tax deductible. Pride is administering this fund. And anything you can contribute would help. Also, the Coalition for Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Equality is continuing a lot of different initiatives. A couple of the really interesting ones are a Speakers Bureau, which is educating people about all these issues, because education is such a big part of the answer. We're also helping work on the Pride events that will be in Missoula this June. This is the email address for the Coalition. The next meeting of the group is this coming Thursday at 5 o'clock at the Gay and Lesbian Community Center. You can write to this address if you don't come to meetings or can't come but want to get involved. We communicate with our membership through an email list, and you'll get action alerts, as Carl's already mentioned, and other information about efforts to improve the situation for gay and lesbian people in Missoula and throughout Montana. So, thank you.
I just wanted to say real quick that, that the song that I sang earlier was made into a single last year, and I don't have the figures with me. I think we raised somewhere between $250 and $500 for the coalition and the relief fund through the sales of that. There are 6 left in the world, and they're at the back of the room. And they're officially $5 a piece, although if you want to give more like 10 or 15 or 20, then we could raise that much money for Adrian and Carla and the coalition. So we got a buyer. I'm not going to be responsible for the money, but somebody who's going to be sitting back at the table is going to handle that. So yeah, just chip in for that, and then you'll be able to raise more money for the fund.
good time to give our thank yous to the Coalition for Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Equality, the Western Montana Gay and Lesbian Community Center, the Outfield Alliance, the Montana Human Rights Network, the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center, and to Pride, and to each and every one of you who came here today and who continue to help throughout the year. Thank you. Montana Women's Chorus. We invite you to sing with us.